1. So where I live, the Sheriff's Department offers policing services to small towns that can't afford the full setup of their own police departments. However, these aren't rural towns, they are basically urban sprawl from the biggest city in my state. They also offer ride-alongs in any of the unincorporated areas or in these small towns. I chose to do my ride-along in one of these towns that is pretty affluent and not really known for any crime, which was fine by me as I wanted to get a feel for what normal police work is like. So I get to the station and take the orientation and we head off. Now, of course, I was assured that nothing ever happens and I was going to be bored the whole time. The deputy I was supposed to ride with was in a meeting, so I rode with the sergeant for about an hour, and nothing really happened. My original deputy got out of his meeting and I got in with him, and that's when the fun started. Almost immediately, we get a call for a fight in progress at a bar. Well, we get there and the bartender tells us that the two guys left, so we spent about 10 minutes looking for them. We come to a stoplight and watch a truck almost T-bone a dude turning left on yellow flashing. We pull both over because the oncoming truck was obviously speeding. Unfortunately, we didn't clock him on radar. We get down there and head out onto the freeway with a 65-mile-per-hour limit. We get to just about the end of the sheriff's jurisdiction when a dude in a Volkswagen comes hauling past us at 86. We flip around and initiate on him, and of course he pulls over right in the middle of a blind corner. The deputy hops out and runs up to the guy and grabs his license, and tells him to move to the parking lot just up the road. So he pulls in with us behind him, and before we can even talk to this guy, we notice 3 things. His license is out of state and expired, his registration is expired, the car isn't registered to him. So the deputy goes up and makes contact with this guy, and he has no excuse for speeding and won't say what he's in the state for. He claims it's his car but registered to his girlfriend, of course we can't prove that. We run his name and find 2 warrants totaling about $180,000, both for trafficking. The guy had a pilot's license, so we figured he was running drugs in a plane and selling to an undercover. He had no clue he even had a warrant, so we double-checked via both the CAD and dispatch, and they were definitely real. So obviously this guy is going to jail. They cut him off, put him in the back of the cruiser. While I'm chatting with the guy, he was perfectly cordial and nice the whole time. He was just dumbfounded that he had warrants. The deputies are searching his car, and of course, they find a baggie less than 1/4 ounce of weed. So we get all the tickets written up, 4 in total, and head off to the jail. The deputies were nice enough to just park his car in the lot and not tow it. We get him booked and head to the evidence locker. Obviously, the marijuana kit tests positive, so we wrote an infraction for that, not my opinion on weed, but the law's the law. All told, the dude was probably looking at around $1,000 in tickets and infractions. And if his license wasn't already expired, I'm sure he would have lost it. After that, we had dinner, Mexican, and started to head back to the station when the neighboring city called in a pursuit on a guy with a felony warrant. We start heading toward them, and it's basically in my backyard, so I was giving the deputy shortcuts on how to get there. Unfortunately, the pursuit was wrapped up by the time we got there, so we head back to the station and start writing up reports. The whole night the deputy was absurdly gleeful, and saying he was so happy because usually nothing ever happens on ride-alongs. So moral of the story is don't speed when your everything is expired, and you have 2 warrants, and ride-alongs are absurdly fun. 2. I'm a civil court clerk in Brazil. My job is to take care of lawsuits, resolve the lawyer's doubts, and explain to the general public that their lawsuit isn't the only one in the world, and everything takes time to be solved. I agree that it usually takes too much time, but a very small part of that is in my hands. Ever since 2013, all new lawsuits are 100% digital, and this is such a great relief for everyone. But there's still a lot of older ongoing cases, and people constantly need some very old lawsuit file to retrieve documents. This court started operating in 1976, so you can imagine how many old files we have. The thing is, it's physically impossible to store them all here, so we have a proper facility for the whole state, handled by a third party. Considering how much stuff they have in their hands, I'd say they do pretty well, but sometimes they lose files, or take months to find them because they're too old to be in the digital registry. If you request an archived lawsuit, it takes 10 to 30 days for it to arrive to us, Unless it's very old, then it takes more. A lot of drama happens because of that. People and lawyers have asked if they can't just drive there to personally ask for the file and get it today. Nope. No way in hell. The procedure for unarchival is very strict to avoid losing stuff during transportation. And the third party has no customer service structure. They can only hand the files for us court clerks through a complicated system I'll spare you guys from. Anyway, a lot of people come here asking for old lawsuits. A lot. If the person has a lawyer, we tell them that the lawyer should be the one to request the unarchival. First, because you're paying him a lot, so let him do the work for you. Secondly, because lawyers are notified of unarchival through the system, while the regular citizen has to come here again and ask if the file is here yet. If it's not, come again, repeat, until it's here. We have a form in case a person currently has no lawyer but is a pain in the ass because people don't know how to fill it in, and we end up doing it for them. Also, a lot of people forget to come back and their lawsuit is archived again. It's midday. An angry-looking gentleman comes to the counter. Doesn't say good morning or afternoon. Always a sign of moderate insanity. It's my counter shift. He simply extends me a paper. I need to unarchive this now. And I need a protocol receipt of it, and let me talk to the director. Wow, a lot of info. I calmly input his lawsuit number in the system. It's from 2010. He was sued by the bank for not paying for his car. We can unarchive your lawsuit, but there's no protocol receipt if you do it yourself. Do you have a lawyer? I have. But she told me to come here myself. She said I only had to talk to the director. If you have a lawyer, it's better that she does it. No, I'll do it. I can get a protocol receipt. A certification, at least. Talk to the director. The director is my supervisor, a fatherly, gentle, non-confrontational man in his early to mid-50s. He's always super busy and hates being disturbed by small shit we clerks can solve. Which happens a lot when it comes to me, because I am the youngest clerk, look even younger, and people often mistake me for an intern. I go to his desk. There's no protocol receipt to give when the party requests unarchival, right? Right. And I can't make a certification of it or something. Only when there is a file here. I go back to the guy. There's really no protocol receipt or certification to give before the file is here. So what do I do? My lawyer said I only need to come down here. I need to prove that... He doesn't know what. I'm gonna lose my deadline. Then she was mistaken, but if your lawyer requests it, there's a protocol receipt. No, I'll do it myself. Okay, then fill in this form, but you'll have to come back if the file is already here. Why? Because if the lawyer does it, we notify her via internet, but we have no way of contacting you. Can I at least have a copy of it? Sure, I'll do it for you after you file. He's confusedly filling in the form. You know what? I have no time to waste coming here again. Okay, sir, have a good day. He leaves, for now. Later on the same day, I was in the back room for a break, but could hear him. You guys in other countries could hear him. The Guardians of the Galaxy could hear him. I came here earlier and the girl gave me the wrong information. My lawyer said... The second in command, who is a very confrontational older lady, said, No, I heard her. Everything she said was right. Now I'm gonna lose my deadline for another lawsuit. A fellow clerk chimes in. Oh, is that it? Your lawyer just needs to request more time while waiting for the unarchival. 3. I was a few years out of college. I had a good job, a nice house, and a girlfriend with whom I was madly in love. Things get pretty serious, and we decided to move in together. So her house goes up for sale. This is apparently important later. Being in New England, inclement weather is common. This was the uncommon kind. Inches of ice, road crews working their asses off, widespread blackouts, and so on for days. Having not fully moved her stuff in yet, my girlfriend decided she needed fresh clothes. I don't blame her. We've been stuck in my place with no power for a couple days. The roads didn't look too bad, so we hop in my truck and head to her place. Lo and behold, it has power. We shower and make ourselves a nice dinner and have a bottle of wine and enjoy a magical evening. Best night of sleep I've ever had, right up until the point where I regained consciousness. I hear something in the bedroom and kind of roll over. There it is again. I open my eyes with great effort, and not a little frustration, only to notice that there are 3 policemen in the bedroom. They all have long guns pointed at my face, and that damnable noise was a large, gruff man shouting, "Let me see your hands! Hands, now!" I have never gone from sound asleep to fully alert so quickly in my entire life. I throw up my hands, which disturbed my girlfriend, who prior to this had been concealed under the comforter. She fidgets, and all the cops get even more jumpy. "Get out of the bed, asshole!" I very slowly and deliberately attempt to extricate myself from a far too soft bed without the use of my hands, and politely ask the officer closest to me if I may please put on some underwear. No dice on that. Tackle out it is. "Show us your ID." Jerking my head towards my pants crumpled on the floor, I politely, read scared shitless timidly, ask if they'd like me to retrieve it. During the harshly worded statement indicating that would not be a smart move, girlfriend wakes up, and she isn't pleased. She bolts upright in bed, takes in the situation, and starts shouting at the officers, all of whom still have their weapons trained on me, and are becoming more agitated by the moment. She flies out of the bed, a 100-pound ball of blonde hair and unadulterated rage. Motherfucking these cops as I'm standing there naked as the day I was born, with a couple of shotguns in my face and my hands over my head, praying to God that she doesn't get me shot. I get hauled down the stairs, still nude, still terrified, to the kitchen, where there are more angry armed men who want questions answered, and they wanted them answered yesterday. Now cuffed, but still nude, though thankfully slightly less fearful for my life, I attempt to stammer out an explanation of the situation. Loud profanities in several voices coming from upstairs all the while. They're not buying my story and told me such. As they're getting ready to drag me to a cruiser for further unpleasantness, one of the officers comes down the stairs followed by a very angry woman who managed to wrap herself in a towel. Somewhat sheepishly he says, "So, it's her house. The address is on her license." The demeanor in the room abruptly changed. They explain they got a call from the realtor. What realtor is out checking on properties at 5 on the weekend, let alone during an ice storm, I will never know. I suspect a certain mother who lived nearby and hated my guts for not allowing her daughter to marry rich like she did, saying there was a suspicious vehicle at the house and people inside. Before I even had time to get mad, everyone was gone without so much as a sorry. I wasn't even able to get the door they smashed fixed until Monday. But hey, I'm alive, and I can definitely laugh about it now. Hope you enjoyed listening. 4. This is a story from before I started my law enforcement career, and also an example of some dumb situations you may find yourself in, if you think with your little head instead of the big one. I'm a young 19-year-old kid in college at this point. I'm at the beach with my family in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Like most 19-year-old males, I live in a state of perpetual arousal, so imagine my excitement when I saw a very attractive woman walk by me on the beach with an older woman who I assumed was her mom. Not one to let an opportunity pass me by, I quickly wandered over to strike up a conversation and see where it went. After a brief conversation, I got her number and a date was set for later that night. Long story short, we got really drunk on some beers I tactically acquired from my dad, and we did some sex. About 17 seconds worth. Ladies. The next day I got a text from the woman, who we'll refer to as Laura. She asked what I was doing, then got straight to the point. "I will fuck you senseless if you get me a pack of cigarettes." I don't need the extra 10 years of life experience that I now possess to realize this was an oncoming train wreck of epic proportions. 19-year-old me thought it seemed like a pretty good bargain. 19-year-old me also didn't question why a then 24-year-old woman needed a 19-year-old to get her some smokes. So instead of getting off the proverbial train tracks, I plopped myself in front of that locomotive and said, "Let's fucking do this." Armed with 2 semesters of business school, I managed to negotiate down from a pack of smokes to some stimulating conversation, coupled with earth-shattering orgasms. Conversation I could provide, orgasms, well, my friends have always described me as an optimist. Laura came to pick me up in her car and off we went. Almost immediately I smelled some alcohol in her breath. Not I've had a few drinks, more I just deep-throated a 5th of Deep Eddies. Naturally this concerned me, being young and having heard all the dangers of drunk driving growing up. Stupidly though, I was committed at this point and didn't ask her to pull over and let me out. Julius Caesar's quote of "the die is cast" was made for this exact moment, I'm sure. Shortly down the road, Laura and I were lit up by a local officer whom I'm sure was really bored that night in his sleepy little town. He strode right up to the driver's side window and explained we had been stopped for our speed. About 30 seconds into his spiel he stopped, looked me in the eye, then asked what I was doing with my hands. Like the true awkward turtle I am, I had my hands hovering in the air as if they were grasping a steering wheel. Yes, this was strange, but I have an explanation. When I first learned to drive, my dad sat me down and explained what to do when I was inevitably stopped by the police. "Nick, when you're stopped, just keep your hands on the wheel until the officer gives you instructions." Good advice, honestly. He never gave instructions on what to do as a passenger when stopped, probably because it's common sense. But I wasn't the brightest bulb with my 1.79 GPA. I briefly stammered out the instructions my dad gave me so long ago, and that I didn't know what else to do. "You have nothing on you that I need to know about, right?" "No, sir." "Then just keep your hands in your lap and take a deep breath. I'll be right back." Satisfied, the officer walked back to his car with Laura's information. The latter hissed at me, asking what I was doing and to keep it cool. I tried my best to relax and not worry. Shortly after, the officer walked back up with her information, released us with a warning, and asked we slow down in the future. I'm still not sure how he didn't smell the alcohol in her breath and investigate further. Maybe my anxiety back then made it seem worse than it was. Maybe he was close to the end of his shift and didn't give a fuck. I'm guessing it was the former. Thankfully, we both arrived safely at her place. I'd like to say it was smooth sailing from that point in time, but I'd be lying. When we did in fact do the no-pants dance again, that was the only good thing that happened. It ended with me fleeing from her bedroom out a convenient side door when her dad banged on her locked bedroom door, demanding to know what was happening. This was coupled with a scenic 3-mile walk home on a dark freeway, because I didn't trust her drunk ass to get me back again safely. Word of warning, y'all. Think with your big head, not the little one. 5. Used to work in a small personal injury law firm. My job was dealing with people's cars and insurance companies, getting their damaged belongings reimbursed, getting adverse drivers and comps to accept liability, arranging for cars to get repaired, etc. We had a client once who got in a really bad accident. He was rear-ended on the freeway and the passenger, a female co-worker, died, while he got a really bad head injury that required extensive surgery. Important thing to remember, the client and his co-worker are both from mainland China and aren't American citizens. I think they were here on a green card or student visa. His mom is my main point of contact because the client was pretty much out of it due to his injuries. We had the signed power of attorney form. His mom calls me one day and asks how they might go about retrieving her son's belongings from his car, because it was all taken to a tow yard and they haven't had a chance to get it. Like his textbooks, laptop, passport, all his important stuff is supposedly in his car. I give her the tow yard's info and tell her to bring any form of her son's ID that she can, and a copy of his auto insurance card. And I'd give the yard a call in the meantime to explain the situation, since they normally don't give anything to people whose names aren't on the title or insurance card. She gives me a call back a while later, and says that the tow yard told her that some lady came by to pick up her son's belongings. She has a name, but doesn't know who this woman is. She's also got a phone number, I forget how. But when she called that number, the woman who answered claimed she had no idea who her son was, and had no idea what she, the mom, was going on about. I gave the yard a call, and they wouldn't give me a name, but they confirmed that the woman produced a valid driver's license and her name matched the one on the insurance card. I called the insurance company, and they confirmed that the woman was indeed on the policy, and the adjuster confirmed that they wouldn't add a rando or just some friend onto the same policy as the client. So, they must have had some kind of formal relationship. I tried calling the number myself, but it's been disconnected. Weird. At this point, I'm figuring that the client has some kind of secret girlfriend that he didn't want his mom to know about. Because how else would some random woman know that this guy got in an accident, know where his car is, produce the appropriate documentation, and take all his valuables? So I get his friend, who was helping the family and knew what was going on, to give the phone to the client while his mom was out of the room. He was awake and lucid at this point, so I can try to figure it out. No dice. He's insisting he has no idea who this woman is either. His friend tells me he thinks the client might still be fairly out of it, since he just woke up and was having memory issues. Okay. I tell his mom that he might need to file a police report because I was hitting dead ends. She understood. A little while later, we get his medical records from the hospital, and a co-worker who was reviewing them told me to go look at them because she thought there was something in there that might shed some light on the mystery woman situation. Turns out the deceased co-worker's husband had come storming into the hospital, blaming the client for his wife's death, which, understandable. The man was clearly grieving over the death of his wife. But the mother had apparently reported that the husband had gotten the client's landlord to open up the client's apartment, and had ransacked it looking for his wife's belongings. Why would a guy be looking for his wife's stuff in another guy's apartment, unless he already had reasonable cause to believe her stuff was at his place? And the plot thickens. Also, this guy was apparently married to his wife for citizenship purposes, which isn't that weird, but it's just another layer of scandal to the story. But wait, there's more. The hospital also noted the client's girlfriend flew in from China to visit him in hospital. At first I'm thinking, oh wait, is this the girl? That's weird, she lives in China, why would she be on an American auto policy? As it turned out, her name did not match the name of the mystery woman's. The plot is now thicker than pitch. We never did find the missing items or figure out who the mystery woman was, but general consensus was that this guy had at least 3 different girls going on at the same time, one of them married and one of them living in an entirely different country. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Eager Legals, Tales of Law and Disorder, Episode 1. Or maybe the only episode, we will see. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. This one has been quite a while in the making. I want to say a year, but it could have been longer. It's one of the ones I mentioned the other day. I've been kind of pushing hard on the newer videos, trying to get them finished. Currently trying to work on the wedding stories as well. Wedding stories are going to be a little bit like this. It's not just one specific thing. I'm trying to gather them from all different sources, different points of view. So maybe there'll be wedding planners, maybe photographers, that sort of thing. Bridezillas, obviously. And whatever you have. If I could find a priest, that would be great. Okay, I'm not going to yammer on too much for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.